What's up, team? And welcome to Bold American. Now, I was in the shower earlier this morning trying to figure out how I was going to intro everything, and we're just winging it. Some of you are new here. Some of you will recognize my voice as that other guy from West Point on the Zero Blog 30 podcast. And just to recap and bring everybody up to speed, Zero Blog 30 was a podcast that I was a co-host on for 8.5 years. After that 8.5 years, my colleagues and co-hosts, Chaps and Kate, had decided it was time for them to move on from the military and veteran space and explore other endeavors here at Barstool Sports. And I respected their decision. I wish them well, but I thought to myself, I think I still have a lot to say. And I think there's still a ton going on in this world that requires a little bit of a discussion, be it in the military and veteran space and beyond that for all Americans. So that is what brought us here today, Bold American. And you're going to meet my co-host here in just a second. From my perspective, and I want to have them introduce themselves, and then I want to tell each of them why I thought they would be a great choice. And I haven't told them that already, so this will be a surprise. But anyway, the show ended, Zero Blog 30 ended, and I had two people who I consider friends, who I consider important voices in the military and veteran space, reach out to me separately, because I don't think they really knew each other super well, maybe like in passing, but not like besties or buddies by any stretch. And separately, they reached out to me, and it's funny how the world works sometimes. Things just click and fall into place. And I got done talking to either of them, and it felt to me like they would both be good to have these conversations with moving forward. So separately, I asked each of them, hey, would you join me if we wanted to keep this thing going, talking about the military, talking about veterans issues, talking about America at large with all that's going on? And they both emphatically said, hell yeah, let's do it. So with that, allow me to introduce you to the other co-hosts of Bold American, and we will start because we are gentlemen and we are polite. We're going to go ladies first. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Manion. Ryan.
Thank you. Yeah. It's funny. I actually did not know our other co-host at all, other than to know that my daughter's boyfriend followed him on Instagram, and he would, and he would like repost. So I started learning about you through that. And, Cons I remember the first time you and I met, I was actually a guest on Zero Blog 30. I was on with Tim Sullivan. He was a firefighter at Rescue One on 9/11. I don't know if you remember us being on.
I don't, because I don't think I was part of that interview. I think Kate and Chaps, or maybe just Kate.
I think it might have been just Kate. I mean, it was like super early, 2016, 2017. But
yeah,
Tim was a firefighter at Rescue One, and he had actually met my brother before my brother left for his second deployment. And we came on the show, and I think I started like talking to you through Twitter a little bit, and then we kind of had that nice Army Navy banter going on, and developed a friendship from there. But for me, it's just it's an honor to be able to have this platform to continue talking about military and veterans issues. A little bit about me. I'm a Gold Star sister. My brother, First Lieutenant Travis Manion, was killed in Iraq on his second tour of duty. I'm also a military child. My father is a retired colonel in the Marine Corps. And I am now a military parent because my daughter is a plebe at the United States Naval Academy. So I fit into every single military box except that of veterans. So I hope to bring a little bit of a different perspective, unique perspective from the military family aspect of things. And I also run one of the largest veteran service organizations in the country, the Travis Manion Foundation. So excited to share more about that. And I'm just thrilled to be here, and excited to be doing this with both of you.
Awesome, Ryan. And I am so thrilled to have you here with us. And also joining us, some might know him as Drunk Old Grad. Some might not even know who the heck the person behind Drunk Old Grad is, but it is Rob Boeckmann. Rob. What's up?
Hey everyone. Hey Connor. We had to do a little background, some PCCs, PCIs here to get Navy girl Ryan up and running for the first episode, but it all worked out. But hey guys, I couldn't be more thrilled and excited to be here. It's still funny to this day. People think Joel Grad is like a 60-year-old, West Pointer who's maybe working in finance or living in DC and stuff. So I kind of like to keep that myth going, but I think to grow the brand and to help more veterans and help the military community, I think there's a good way to speak more and to do more media opportunities and just have some fucking fun conversations, right? And so, Connor, thank you so much for giving me that opportunity to join Barstool Sports and be a co-host with you and the wonderful Ryan Manion, who's doing such great work with Travis Manion Foundation. So, to Ryan's point earlier, I think we'd crossed paths before by some sort of activation for the Ryan Manion Foundation tailgate at Army Navy. I think when I was a CMO of Feltman's, shout out to Feltman's, the hot dog company.
Yes.
I think we delivered 2,000 wieners or something to your tailgate or something. It was and I think it wasn't even me. It was our chief operating officer, our CEO at the time, who were both Army guys. They dropped off a bunch of hot dogs at the Travis Manion Foundation tailgate in the cold or something at 4 a.m. So the hot dogs are still good. But anyways, Connor, again, thank you so much. You know what I mean? We go way back. So I started Jungle Grad 10 years ago. This is year 10 for Jungle Grad. I started it when I was a first lieutenant deployed in Kenya, of all places. I was our artillery officer deployed in Kenya. More about that at some point as we get through the show and stuff and more episodes. But I've been following Connor and all the wonderful stuff he was doing at Barstool. And then he started Zero Block 30. So huge shout out to Chaps and Kid as well, because I've been listening to them for at least 6 years. When I got out of the Army, when I was an advertising guy, when I started in advertising to where I am now. So just hats off to them. They're super awesome. Always been super supportive too with the stuff I had going on with Feltman's in the past and with Drunk Hole Grad. So with that, I'm just excited to be here. I'm a Vegas guy, so I live out in Las Vegas if anyone's ever out this way and we want to do some content. But I'm here and my voice is really raspy. But let's get it.
Yeah, and might have a little bit of a congestion too, which is always great when you're being introduced to new people. They're like, wow,
nothing better.
It's already brutal enough to hear this guy with his Jersey accent. Now just throw a cold on top of that, and it's not exactly the best. Rob, really quickly though, you have something hanging on the wall behind you. What is that? What is that?
Yeah. So hey guys. So you might see it. It's the West Point diploma that Connor and I both have. He's a little older than me, but it was funny. We we both graduated from the same place. We're a little different, but we have the same kind of mindset, and we're both good dudes. So, and then we got an Army football jersey right behind me too from one of the bowl games. I did not play; it was gifted to me, but I got a rep. And I know Connor, you obviously played football, but yeah, we both have 2 West Point diplomas on the screen, and Ryan has some Navy stuff back there too. So,
yeah,
Marine Corps
and this was it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so tired of 8.5 years just getting bullied about going to West Point. So with my next iteration, I got to make sure I have more West Pointers with me. It just worked out that way that I have that relationship with you, Rob. And what I want to say about each of you, Ryan, you hit the nail on the head with all the different perspectives, military brat, Gold Star sister, now a military mother. I just think it's so valuable to us have all those different perspectives. And I know you mentioned you're not a veteran yourself, but I also really like that too, because I think sometimes as veterans, we can kind of get tunnel vision in terms of how we think about things. And certainly the spectrum of how veterans view issues varies, but you still always bring that veteran aspect. So I like that, one of the hats you wear is civilian. And it just made sense to me that you would join. And I want to ask you, did you reach out in the hopes that I'd say hey, let's do something together? Or was your reach out genuine, or was it both? What was the reason when you reached out to me when ZBT ended?
Well, I'll say number one, it's always been super important to me. And I loved, we've got a great relationship with the Travis Manion Foundation and Barstool. Barstool has always been, for the last 5-6 years has been awesome supporters of our organization. And I loved the fact that there was this, military arm to Barstool Sports. And I thought it was super important. And I loved the dynamic with you, Chaps, and Kate. You know, I often say, like, Kate is my long lost relative. We're both Philly girls with the last name Manion. So and she was a Marine. So, you know, she tells the story of how when she was in Iraq, you know, someone came up to her and was like, "Are you related to Travis Manion?" And she said no. And she said, and I just saw this like look of sheer disappointment from them. And I was like, no, wait, I can be related, you know? But, you know, I loved that those stories were being told, those issues were being talked about at Barstool Sports. And so, you know, when I saw that Zero Block 30 was ending, there wasn't really anything more than like, oh shit, this sucks, you know, like this was, I love this. And so, again, you know, I consider you a good friend, and I shot you a text to be like, hey, I'm sorry this is ending. Like, what a bummer. Like, you know, let me know if you ever want to continue doing something, because again, your voice is important too. And I didn't know what I was thinking. It was just, there was no like, oh, let's keep it going.
Ulterior motive.
Yeah,
right.
There was no ulterior motives other than shooting you a text first to just say, hey, job well done, if that is it. And second, like, hey, if you ever want to do more, like, you know, I'm here to keep talking about things with you.
Yeah. And I mean, that's awesome. And it doesn't surprise me to hear that answer. So thank you for that. I do appreciate you reaching out. And honestly, it kind of sparked, because I knew I wanted to keep something going. I thought in the beginning I was just going to be doing kind of, you know, short videos on my own, posting them to social. And there wasn't a intention of keeping a podcast going, at least in the immediate. And it kind of all came together quickly. And then for you, Rob, the one thing I want to say to you that I've never said to you is, when you first started, and then obviously you started before Zero Block 30 started, and people in our circle would constantly be tagging you and stuff. And then once ZBT got off the ground, I was like, you know, why are people tagging ZBT in this stuff? Why do they keep tagging this drunk old grad guy? So there was a twinge of like getting irked by not you, but your brand. And it wasn't until I got to know you and I was like, oh, yeah, all right, cool. This guy's cool. That I softened, and I realized that you were doing a great thing from your end. And I think what you've built, I mean, really, it's been military and veteran, obviously geared towards a lot of inside West Point jokes that I enjoy. And I know a lot of other grads enjoy. But I just wanted to get that off my chest, that there was a twinge of, I guess we could say, jealousy in the beginning. And I don't know, how do you react to that?
It's friendly competition. The field's a friendly strife. You know what I'm saying? Because what happens in the content world, ladies and gentlemen, is when you see another brand taking off and it's Barstool related in that ecosystem, you got to dial up your fucking content. And so, to be honest, when Zero Block 30 and Army Barstool came out, I'm an entrepreneur, right? So like it made me seek out more content, come up with more creative strategies to be relevant, right? And so I attribute the success of Drunk Old Grad to, one, I love West Point. I grew up there. I was a kid. My dad went to West Point. He taught there. In the 90s, I grew up there when Army football was really crushing it, right? In the late 90s, I went to West Point. It's my passion, right? I love everything about the history, the culture, the tradition and like the rivalry with Navy. There's nothing better, right? And so for me, the Drunk Old Grad brand was just kind of elevated, even with all these other smaller brands or bigger brands in the military space and content creators. So I appreciate you saying that. But I think it made both of us better too, with just the banter, learning about West Point, learning about the military culture, and just raising the bar on content, because that's what people want, right? They want to read cool shit. They want to learn about grads. They want to learn about, a certain building, maybe, on a nerdy side, but it's just that Drunk Old Grad, I think, does a good job of not just trying to play into like the humor, but we recognize grads, right? We recognize the fallen. We support grads that need help. We support Navy alum that need help and support. So there's just a good brand there, and I just want to help it grow and have an impact too. So I appreciate that, Connor.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of content, let's just get into it. Let's start talking and figure out what the heck this show is going to be all about. Our first topic up for discussion, and who knows, maybe we'll call these segments something, and maybe we'll just continue to work off a sheet, but we'll figure that all out. But the first topic I wanted to discuss, We got a changing of the guard here. Obviously, we have a new president that came in and was sworn into office in January, and with that, all new cabinet members. And I think the one that hits home for all of us is the new Secretary of Defense, and specifically all the new Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the changing of the guard that is happening there. So just really general, what are your thoughts on all these generals, in the headlines you read, fired, you can call it what you will. That ultimately is what it boils down to. They're being fired and replaced. But I'll start with you, Ryan. What are you thinking about all of the change that is happening across the DOD and the Department of Defense?
I think overall, no one should be surprised, because this is exactly what Trump talked about doing. And in fact, when Pete got in, when he was testifying, he said there are too many generals. There is, he shared what was going to happen. I think it was, I was in Annapolis this weekend, and it was actually, my daughter said, Mom, do you know there's no CNO anymore? Because, you get to a service academy, like, you are required. You need to know who everyone is, right? And Mom, do you know the CNO got fired? And I was like, I do. And she said, well, what does that mean? And I was like, I don't know, and I don't know the answer to that. And the interesting thing about it was, we took away we fired our chairman of the Joint Chief and put someone in his place. It was like, he's fired. This is who's hired. But with the CNO, it was like, Chief of Naval Operations, you're fired. And, we're taking applications, which I found totally unprecedented. Like, and I don't know if I agree with that, from the sense of, like, I think when you have positions that are this big and mean this much, you better know who's next in line before you fire that person. Like, for me, I was like, I didn't love that move. And frankly, when I tried to dial down on why did they let Admiral Franchetti go, there wasn't a lot of context around it. You really could find the differences with General Brown, social differences, political differences. Like, I understood why, Trump's the president. He, you serve at his leisure. I understood the reasoning for why he let him go, because he didn't align with what he wanted in this administration. But with Franchetti, I couldn't find anything. It was like, well, shipbuilding is taking a little bit longer than we wanted. And so that was a little bit tougher for me. And I think, I looked at it from the 18-year-old perspective of, like, my kid going, well, I don't understand. Why did this happen? What did this mean? And I didn't really have any answers for her. So unprecedented times, I will say.
Yeah. Sure. And you're absolutely right with, hey, this isn't somebody who's like pushing papers in an office. This is a very important position. We should have a plan in place before we remove this person. That's something I certainly agree with. Rob, what did you think?
Yeah, I think I was about to go to sleep on Friday night when I saw the tweets coming in, and I was like, oh shit, this is definitely going to be a topic. So yesterday I was kind of educating myself on it, right? Just a little bit when I had some time yesterday between family stuff. It's classic Trump move, right? It's like, rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just fucking start afresh. It's textbook Trump. I think, but I also think past administrations have done this similarly. Maybe they waited a little longer to kind of smooth it out, iron it out, get some wins, and kind of slow roll out the transition. But this is classic Trump, especially with Pete at the helm. Shout out, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, who also loved Feltman's hot dogs. But it's just, they're trying to start fresh. And if you look at it, when I served, I went to West Point in 2008, deployed twice after I graduated. I got out in 2017. You know what? Under Trump, what he's been saying last year too, and at rallies and when he was campaigning, is he wants to get rid of these generals that kind of got us stuck in those forever wars, right? So regardless of if they're really good people or not, I think Trump's doing what he said he's doing. And I don't agree with the way he did it, but it's just classic Trump. It's art of the deal, right? It's just get him out, clean house, and then throw the new guy in. I think is the 3-star from the Air Force. I can't remember his name, but it's interesting. But it's classic
Raisin
Trump.
King. Raisin King is his name.
Yeah.
Call sign Raisin.
And I think he was dropping bombs when I was still on my last deployment. I think he was in charge of all the counter ISIS missions, taking out ISIS in 2016, 2017. So he's got a good reputation. And I think Trump and to his credit, the SecDef, they just want guys that are apolitical. They didn't have any baggage on them. But the CNO one was interesting to me too, Ryan. I'm obviously an Army guy. I don't know too much about Navy culture and the way it works with, establishing more ships and kind of getting that through Congress. But, maybe there's something behind the scenes that we just don't know about.
But I think, Rob, you made an excellent point in that I don't disagree with removing people and bringing your people in. It's no different than, if a CEO came into a new company, you want to bring your people in, you want to get people that you align with in positions of power. And that's happened well before President Trump, and it'll continue to happen after President Trump. Where I think they're missing the mark is how they're presenting it. They're saying things that, in so many words, like, we're firing this person because they stink and we don't like this person, as opposed to just being a little bit more diplomatic about it. And I think it would be much more palatable if they said, hey, we appreciate this person's service and we're going to change out that role. It's the messaging of it all feels very vindictive, I guess you could say. And in a world where I think we need to try to get away from everything being combative and everything being political, especially when it comes to the military, the messaging could be a little bit, I don't want to say softer, so I sound like, we're weak, but softer, I think is the better way to put it. And I think if the messaging was different, people wouldn't be reacting to the way that it's happening right now.
100%. I think, just quickly, I think Trump won and he beat Kamala pretty fair and square, and he has that momentum, right? Why, the military and the veteran population community, pretty much lean towards him, like maybe soften it a little bit, like the messaging, to your point, be a little more diplomatic, pragmatic with the way you go about this change. It's going to happen. You're going to get it done, but just maybe finesse that just a little bit. And I feel like everyone is kind of rushing to do a million things at once when the administration has 4 fucking years. Like, I got it. There's some high stakes involved here with the military and what's happening in Russia, Ukraine, and potentially, Israel, Palestine, and Asia Pacific, whatever. But, if you kind of slow roll it and you take some people on the journey and you just kind of play to the media a little bit, maybe it might work out better and it might be a little smoother. But yeah, that Friday night, those tweets were interesting. It's classic Trump, though. Do it when people aren't suspecting it, when everyone's snuggling up in bed and the press is kind of going to sleep, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. We'll see how things go. Certainly, they are aiming to change how things have been done for a while, and I think we saw that as well with the blanket email that went out from Doge. And at first, I thought it was a joke, right? Because
Me too.
You get an email that says, hey, tell me what you did last week, in about 5 bullets. Ryan, you're a CEO. How do you feel about this move, sending out an email to everybody and saying, like, tell me what you did? Like, it's like Office Space, the 2 Bobs. Like, what would you say you do here? What do you think about this tactic?
Well, I mean, I think anybody I've ever sent an email to asking to know what they did in the past week, it's because I'm getting ready to fire them. Because I don't think they're doing anything, right? And so again, another unprecedented move by this administration. I think the rapid fireness of everything that is going on is, it can be a little bit unsettling because, and so I think you hit on something, Connor. It's like everything's happening so fast. And like Robbie said, like we got 4 years, right? And I completely agree with that. And they are just in such a rush to be like, we did it. Look what we accomplished. I think it's like, look what we accomplished in the first 100 days. That's the play right now. That's the move, what they want to do. I will be completely honest with you guys. Elon Musk scares the shit out of me. I think he is
really.
Yes. I mean, if you're tracking everything, not only like, listen, clearly he's a brilliant guy, but he's also getting like, nobody's even paying attention to the fact that he's like had his 13th child over the weekend too. And he's standing at CPAC with the chainsaw in his hand. And meanwhile, his one baby mama is firing away on Twitter saying, your child's having a medical emergency. Can you get in touch with me? Someone help me get in touch with you. And then some other woman's going, I just had Elon Musk's baby. And then the text messages come out. I don't know if you saw the text messages between this.
No.
I think she's Ashley St. Clair. Something St. Clair is her name. She just had Elon Musk's baby. And I mean, he's a total like horn dog. Like he's sending her pictures and he's like, I can't wait to get you knocked up again. You know, but meanwhile, he hasn't even seen his kid. You gotta see all the stuff. So like for me, I'm very trepidatious of what he's doing. And frankly, I think he's a little bit dangerous to this administration because you talk about Trump being a loose cannon. This guy, I think, and I believe he feels he is unpenetrable. Like he is just like, nobody can touch him. I'm in here. I'm going to slash and burn. And listen, I believe in limited government. I 100% do. So I'm all for like getting rid of waste and inefficiencies, but I don't know. He's got a scary vibe to him for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, Elon is Trump's boyfriend at this point, right? They're putting on a show. It's like a reality TV series. What scares me more than what's happening right now is if when the breakup happens. Because there's just so much connective tissue right now between what Trump's doing and saying and Elon. And now you're seeing some of the emails that took place right over the weekend from Elon. Now Tulsi and Kash Patel, the new director of the FBI, are kind of like, yo, slow it down a little bit. We just got here. We're trying to figure out our own departments and our own staff and our own strategy. So I think we just, again, to Connor's point and Ryan's point earlier, we got to kind of just pump the brakes a little bit on the messaging, maybe do some more behind the scenes work. Do the chainsaws in a year once shit really gets figured out and you can celebrate. I mean, we're what, 4 weeks in, 5 weeks in of a four-year administration. Like, let's just tone it back a little bit. I know it's Trump's vibe, it's his MO, but to Ryan's point, man, we gotta fucking just slow it down a little bit. And Elon, you never know what's gonna happen tomorrow, right? They could have another press conference. Elon and his 13 kids could be in the Oval Office, sitting next to Trump or something on the ground, and it's just. Some of that stuff to me is just it's a little too much. And we gotta peel back a little bit.
Yeah, certainly the breakneck speed is alarming. Certainly, on the one hand, you want to say like, I'd love to see the wheels of government move faster, but you almost have to think like, okay, all right, but maybe not this fast, right?
No.
I'd still like some checks and balances. I'd still like some discussions on, is this the best way to do this? Sometimes when I've been in discussions with friends or family or whatever, before I send a text, like I'll loop my wife in and say like, hey, this is what's going on. Like, I was thinking about saying this, like, what do you think? Whereas it seems like Elon doesn't have that person, right? He's just firing at the hip, doing as he pleases. And he's been given the directive, like, just go. And I think we need to put some restrictions on that ability to just go, because, I saw him say something to the effect of, well, part of this email exercise was to find people who are just collecting paychecks and not actually doing anything and maybe don't even still work in that department. So we're trying to eradicate jobs and roles that aren't actually in existence. And if that's the case, that's one method of doing that. I got it. But I'd also like to see him empower these new leaders of these different departments and allow them to lead as they see fit, because not every organization and certainly not every department is built the same, right? And you got to treat things differently. And I think what you saw this past weekend was other directives from the heads of these different departments emailing on top of that email and saying like, don't do anything right now. Just stand fast. You're not going to get fired. We need to figure out like what's going on with our department. And I like to see that is taking place, because I think it is scary, especially if you're working in government. If you're working hard and doing a good job, that uneasy feeling because I mean, it's no different than leadership, and you look across the civilian world, and reductions in force happen all the time. It's super unfortunate. I'm not advocating for anybody to be losing their job, but I do agree that I think there's layers to our government that might be found to be unnecessary and preventing things from operating at its most efficient manner. So I'm all for it. And just like with him, the different generals being fired, I'm all for taking a look at things, but maybe doing it in a manner more befitting of the U.S. government. Maybe that's me giving the government too much credit. Like they're just these professionals who do things right all the time. But that's where I'm at.
Yeah, well, I also think too, when you get back to like the larger picture, and frankly, why the three of us are sitting here, it's it all plays down to like there's a lot of volatility right now, and that's not good for our military. That's not good for the 17, 18, 19-year-old kid, and frankly, the 17, 18, 19-year-old kid's parents. And I think about it from that perspective a lot. Again, as a mom whose kids asking questions, who's taken their oath of office. And I'm like, I don't know, kid, yeah, there's a lot going on right now, and I think at the end of the day, you have to think about like the ripple effects that can happen when you make like really quick, rash decisions. And, is there a full developed plan? Maybe there is, and we just don't know it. But right now, it just seems like a lot of just like the machetes out, and it's just like down the line,
It's like this podcast. We're just figuring it out. Like they're just
figuring it out.
Totally.
Zero plan.
I would say the consequences on our end are a little less severe than
that's true.
Defense and the different departments across the government. So I can certainly appreciate the uneasiness of those in the military and those who are getting ready to join the military, or in your case, Ryan, your daughter, what does 4 years from now look like for me? And I can appreciate how it can be scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I often think about like, my brother graduated in 2004. When he went to the Naval Academy, it was a peaceful time, and probably the most peaceful time in our nation's history. My dad had done 20 years in the Marine Corps, and like the furthest he went was like to Kuwait during the Gulf War, and then it was like, all right, come back 24 hours later. Like there was nothing. And so like I didn't even really understand, and frankly, I don't think my brother did. And I just talked to someone yesterday who is a West Point grad who graduated in May of 2001. And I was like, would you have gone had you known? And he's like, I'd like to say I would have gone if, but I don't know the answer to that. But like, you think about that. And, when my daughter made the decision to go to the Naval Academy, I was like, all right, we're all good. Things are winding down. And then I was like, you're so stupid. You're so stupid to like think that that's the reality, And so I think about that shit every single day, It's super scary.
Yeah. I mean, that's, sorry, not to veer too far off topic, but what is that? What does that scariness feel like as a parent versus like when your brother was serving? Is it the same? Is it different? What is that like?
Totally different. I mean, first of all, I thought my brother was like invincible, like, I mean, just in general in life. So I never thought anything would happen to him. I actually was like, when Travis was killed during the height of the surge in Iraq. And so, every day you were seeing on the news, like they would put up the faces. I don't know if you guys remember, but like they literally would share the faces of every service member. So I saw it every night. But I always used to think of it as like this needle in a haystack situation. I'm like, not that, I felt terrible for everyone losing their lives, but I'm like, there's
I know what you mean.
People over there. The percentage of it happening to my brother. And then also in my head going, and I mean, my brother's such a badass Marine, nothing's going to happen to him. So, I didn't have that fear at all. I mean, I have I now look back, my mom passed away, but I look back thinking about what my mom dealt with when my brother was deployed. And I'm like, geez, I can't even fathom thinking about that as a parent, especially again, not to be sexist, but like, it's my daughter, it's like, I don't know. So, but she's a badass too. So,
yeah. No, it's, I'm Catholic, grew up Catholic. My parents very Catholic, and can always remember going to, church every Sunday. But I remember when I was deployed, my mom went to church every day.
yeah,
Like, that was how it was. And then every day, I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. Like, she would say the hardest part of her day was turning the corner onto our street, and whether or not she would see, a government vehicle out in front of the house. She would always like hold her breath at that part of the day, because she didn't know. So, certainly, one thing I think we can all agree on is what the world looks like now. I don't imagine that the world will look like this in 2028 when your daughter graduates. Might be worse, might be better, who knows? But it's almost like you can't, and I'm not going to tell you how to feel, but you almost like make yourself nuts if you think about it too much, because who's to even say it's going to be the same type of world that our military is dealing with in 2028.
Yeah, I agree. But the one thing I also say is like, I don't think you can be more inspired as an American than when you see these young men and women that are like making the decision to join our military. And I will forever say that, as messed up as this world seems right now, and as divided as our country seems, there are still every single day these young Americans that are volunteering, like the both of you, to serve and defend, knowing the risks that are involved. And like that for me is the beauty of what this country represents. And that's what like wakes me up every day and leaves me inspired to go out and do everything I can to support this community. So it's just,
that's awesome.
Oh, and let me ask you both, because I think you were both at the respective service academies this past weekend, and I promised to the listeners, like, we're not going to just talk about service academy stuff every week. I promise. It's just topical right now. What was the mood on post when you were both there at both Army and Navy this weekend? To your point, Ryan, like, just how people feel.
Well, it's funny, Connor, because my daughter plays lacrosse for the Naval Academy, and they played Harvard this weekend. They actually lost. It was their first loss. Lost 9-11. Sucked.
Close game though.
Close game. But at the end of the game, of course, like every service academy, they got up. They lined up and they sang the alma mater, and they faced the crowd. And I looked over, and the Harvard girls were sitting in a circle, and they were stretching. And Blue and Gold starts playing, and they're singing, and I'm watching them, and everybody's standing up. We all got our hands over our heart, and they're sitting. And then and I'm literally eyes on the Harvard lacrosse team, and I'm like, what are you doing? And one of them realized, oh wait. And so one of them stood up, and then the rest of them stood up, and they all kind of faced the girls, and they, I don't even know if they knew what was happening. Like, what are they singing? What are they doing? And, and they all started putting their hands over their heart. And for me, I was like, I'm glad they got to feel that little piece of what these girls and, these midshipmen in the stands feel every single day. And even in that loss, they're going to stand up, they're going to face the crowd, they're going to sing their alma mater, and, obviously going to end it with the, beat Army. So, yeah.
And now those girls from Harvard have, they have something to carry with them, and they understand like what their opponents are about. And maybe that's a little chip on their shoulder too, to be like, shit, I'm actually pretty proud. Like that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Rob, I'm sorry, you were at West Point, right? This weekend?
No, I'm actually going up this weekend. So
okay.
Yeah. I mean, just like Ryan, for a daughter's lacrosse game, I'll be up there for Army men's lacrosse. Army men's basketball, and then Army men's rugby. And then there's like 10 other sports going on too, to shout out to like Army rifle, Army softball, I think, all the other sports. So I'm going to try and do my rounds, see as many people as I possibly can, and just have some fun.
Okay, cool.
We'll see about the weather, and then I'll report back as to how it was next week.
Okay. All right. Well, but Ryan, that's encouraging to hear. And I would suspect that the Harvard girls in the beginning had no idea what was going on, because that's not typical.
It certainly wasn't a level of disrespect. It's just like, they were just like, wait, what's happening, And so they all kind of slowly, and I was watching them, and again, I think it hit different for me. Obviously you see it at the football games, but it was like all these females, and here's all these young girls that are watching all these other young girls, and they're like, oh shit. Like in my head, I was thinking that they're looking at them going, being reminded that these girls are actually serving in the military, and they just played this team, and that's a good reminder that you got to keep putting in front of their faces, Like I always say, like not everybody is driven to serve in the military, and 100% that's okay. But I do believe that as Americans, you have a responsibility and an obligation to understand what the military community is about and what the men and women who put on our nation's uniform every day represent. Like, I think as an American, you have that responsibility.
Yeah. And it's not that hard. It's just, it takes a little time to figure that out.
Yeah.
Ryan, I definitely want to dive deeper at some point in terms of, because you mentioned it, but the fact that you have a daughter as opposed to a son, and how that might, change your feelings on serving in the military. And I do think that's a topic that requires some pretty deep discussion. And I think it is something that has, we could say, plagued the military community, I think, in recent years. But that, we'll say that for another day, but it does warrant a lengthy discussion. But shifting gears really quickly to another American institution that we saw in the news over the last few days, and that is Hooters. The Hooters restaurant potentially having to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And I just got a little
sentimental. Did you get sad?
Yeah, sentimental. Maybe we could say sentimental. I have some interesting memories from Hooters when I was in school and shooting down to the Paramus Hooters in the summers. But I just, one of those things where you just assumed it would be around forever, and you would never think like Hooters would fail, because who doesn't like wings and beer and sports and the nice servers there, the Hooters. But I guess just if you guys saw that this weekend, and what did you think? Rob, I'll start with you.
I mean, it's an American institution. I was born and raised in Germany, and even as a kid in Germany, I think there was a Hooters in Holland or Belgium. And so when I was a kid, I remember driving by and being like, what's that? My dad was like, you'll go in there one day. I was like, okay. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the first time I actually went to Hooters, though, was when I was a cadet. And then when I was lieutenant in El Paso. And, that was obviously like the big enlisted hangout. And, you saw a couple officers in there here and there. But I, as a proud Las Vegas resident, we had the Hooters Casino and Resort here. About 3-4 years ago, it rebranded to an Oyo Hotel, which I think is an Indian company. But when I was in my early 20s, I'm 35 now, so like 10 years ago or so, if I wanted a couple cheap drinks or just to hang out with some of my friends, we would go to the Hooters Resort when we were in Vegas, and just kind of get loaded up in there and just kind of gallivant around and just eat some food there. The wings were cheap. It was a great vibe. It was a good aura, like the kids say. But yeah, shout out to Hooters. It's kind of sad, you know what I mean? It's been a staple in American history for 40 years. I think my dad went when he was a cadet. So I haven't been
working with a couple consultants to figure it out. It's not a foregone conclusion that they're going to file bankruptcy. So there's still hope. But
maybe Elon can buy it. Maybe Elon with Doge, can fix it. You know what I mean?
Maybe Doge can also shift their priorities to save Hooters. But Ryan, as the female here, how are you feeling about Hooters potentially going bankrupt?
I could give a shit. I've never been to a Hooters. I don't care. No.
Okay.
Yeah. Like,
all right.
Sorry. I mean, if it's a big military hangout, then I'm sorry they lost their, but I could care less about Hooters closing.
Well, I also think it just speaks to, it seems like people, and this is completely me taking a shot in the dark here. I don't have any data to back this up, but it seems to me like people are going out to restaurants less. Do you guys get that sense that that's part of it, is that people don't want to just eat out as much with all the different delivery services? People are more apt to order something and eat it in the comfort of their home versus the experience of dining out. And also, obviously, it's 2025, and with so many things in our culture as they evolve, is Hooters seen as something that is just not appropriate anymore?
I mean, I don't think it's seen as not appropriate. I mean, look where we are, friggin' OnlyFans, I mean, I don't think I think it's probably more appropriate now. Like Hooters used to be like Hooters, now it's like, who cares? But I think if people are going to go out now, they're going to go out and they want to eat like good food. They want the farm to table experience, right? If not, if you're going to eat wings, you DoorDash them or something. So yeah, I think it has changed a little bit, that landscape.
Yeah, I think I agree there with Ryan. But then you got Tilted Kilt. Remember that one? Or Twin Peaks?
Yes.
Like those are flourishing. So maybe it's just like, maybe the Hooters, I don't know. Maybe there's something that's too expensive there, or there's some sort of overhead that they just can't compete anymore. But again, I'm a Vegas guy, Vegas resident, been living here since 2019. I'm in the capital of hospitality. I was driving around this weekend with my family, and I noticed just how many, to Ryan's point, how many chains or restaurants, kind of like middle-class fancy restaurants, are closing down or just rebranding or just like shut down. I think to your point, if the three of us want to go get drinks and then steak or something, that right there is what, $180 nowadays. And then on top of that, tip. And then if we just want a quick meal, ends up being almost like $60 to $80 a person, maybe $100 a head for just a quick lunch with a good meal. So I think a lot of it is price point too. And then, maybe Hooters is just outdated. John Daly and some of those golfers can only do so much to keep it open.
Yeah, I mean, every year at the Masters, Daly's got his RV parked in the Hooters parking lot at Augusta there. Maybe he can save it. I don't know. Do you guys remember there was a Hooters airline? I remember trying to look for tickets. Yes, there was. I remember looking for tickets on that just to experience it and see what it was all about. It was very short lived, though. I don't know that it lasted more than even a year. A couple years even.
You would have blown your deployment check on that, wouldn't you? Just like just a quick cross-country flight.
Yeah, just to see what it was all about.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I guess potentially RIP to Hooters.
Yeah.
But we will see. We will see. All right. And now we are going to wrap things up. And I think maybe we're going to call this the last 72. As we talk in the military and review the last 72 hours. But I'll throw it to each of you to tell us about your last 72 or anything that might be a topic that you'd like to just mention very quickly. And then we'll wrap this thing up for the first episode. Rob, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Low-key weekend for me, guys. Obviously a lot of news going on as the Vegas resident on the show, and also a German born and raised, proud German. There were some German elections that took place yesterday. Looked like the centrist conservatives won. So that's probably a good thing. But everyone in Europe right now is focused on immigration and just kind of rejuvenating their economy. So maybe on some future podcasts and shows, we can talk about Europe a little bit more, because without Europe, there would be no America, right? So, but anyways, yeah, just staying abreast on some of my European news and laying low this past weekend was nice. I'll be at West Point, like I said, next weekend. So I'll have a lot more to talk about and disclose, and just kind of catch everybody up to date on as to what's going on at West Point. I'll be hanging out, like I said, with some classmates and some coaches, and then obviously the new Army AD Theo is in the helm now. So I'll link up with him and learn about all the good new things that are happening at West Point for Army sports. And yeah, just staying healthy and fit. So that's pretty much it.
Ryan?
Good stuff. Yeah, like as I said, I was down at the Naval Academy this past weekend, hanging out with my daughter and a bunch of her plebe friends who are just trying to get through plebe year, which is challenging. And I'm actually headed to Nashville tomorrow for Gary Sinise has a documentary that is premiering tomorrow, Brothers After War. So it follows a group of I think it's Marines and Army. You're gonna get me wrong, but military documentary. Gary invited me to come down to the premiere in Nashville, so I'm super excited for that, and I'll definitely report back on that next week and share more about that experience. You know what I'm really excited about, actually? I'm going to be meeting for the first time. So Zach Bell is a good friend of mine, veteran.
Yes, I love Zach. Shout out Vet with a Sign.
Zach's great, but Zach lives down in Nashville, and I was on the phone with him the other day, and he shared with me that he's bringing Tyler Vargas to the premiere. Tyler was one of the catastrophically wounded in Kabul. He's the one who testified to Congress, and I've been wanting to meet him for so long. We're gonna have to have him on the show because I don't know if you guys remember listening to his testimony that when he testified what had happened that day and the colossal failures that happened. But I'm super excited to meet him. So I'll share more about that.
That's awesome.
Cool. And please let Lieutenant Dan know that he's welcome to join us on the show. That was one of the people that I wanted to have on ZBT for the longest time. Never happened. So hopefully we can get Lieutenant Dan. Okay, awesome. Couple housekeeping things. This is a new show, so if you're listening for the first time, please just go like, subscribe, rate 5 stars. It really will do a lot of help for us as we get off the ground here. It'll be very, very helpful. So please do all of that. If you have any feedback, please send us a note in the DMs. Do not be rude, although I will read everything. But if you're rude, I won't respond to you. But I will read it.
Constructive criticism, we'll respond to that.
Yes. And then also, if you are a veteran-run business or you are a veteran that is in a leadership role at a business and you are looking for new ways to advertise, email me, cons@barstoolsports.com. I want to do as much as we can to lift up veteran-run organizations, demonstrate your products, whatever they might be, and really, do what we can to help you all out. And if you are interested in advertising with us, please just shoot me a note. I've done that in the past, and it's been effective, and I want to work with you. So cons@barstoolsports.com. And the last thing I will share with everyone, and as it pertains to my past weekend, we were mostly low key. My wife, I don't think I'm violating anything. She did say I could say this. She was not feeling too well. And the reason, I think part of the reason she was not feeling too well is because I have yet another little person joining the world in August.
Congratulations.
Thank you. A baby boy. Very excited.
Let's go.
So there it is. Very excited. So a lot going on this year. I hope everybody enjoyed the first episode of Bold American, and you decide to stick with us as we continue to grow. And here's to the next chapter. And I'm so grateful to you, Ryan, and to you, Rob, for joining me. And I'm looking forward to every week breaking down what's going on in the military and veteran space and America at large. And I'm excited for what's to come. So with that, we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Can I say one more thing real quick?
Of course.
Okay, super important. I just want to give a shout out because I recognize too, we talked a lot about Naval Academy, talked a lot about West Point. You got 2 West Point grads here, Naval Academy mom and sister here. I want to make sure that you know that we are, we're going to be talking to the enlisted ranks as well. Not only that, but our awesome producer, Jonathan Sands on the back end is
shout out.
So I want to thank him for being our enlisted advisor. I think I saw someone on Twitter call him.
That's a good name.
Yes. So you are our enlisted advisor, and we want to thank you for all you're doing on the back end for this show. And listen, we're going to have you on sometimes to offer that perspective because it's an important one, and we want to make sure we're talking about it.
I appreciate it a lot, Ryan. Honestly, I almost jumped in when you guys were talking about Hooters. I was gonna say, what does Sans think about Hooters? Twin Peaks is elite. Okay, I went there last night after the Wings game. I had a wonderful prime rib Philly. I mean, you can't stack up against that. I think Twin Peaks is just running them out of business. That's what happened.
See, I was right, wasn't I, Sans? Senior enlisted advisor. I was right about Twin Peaks.
You were, yeah. You crushed it. You crushed it. I was firing off a text, but you mentioned Twin Peaks. I was like, okay, no, he's got it covered for me.
Yeah, I got
it. But no, it's an honor. It's an honor to be on the back end and to learn from you three individuals who are, highly successful in what you've already accomplished for military and veterans. And what Cons has done with ZBT and turning this into BA, and then Travis Manion Foundation, what you have going on, Ryan, and then Rob, I'm learning a lot about you as you go. Drunk old grad. I think someone, we have that guy doing the Bold American meme front, and it was so funny. The video he made, someone commented on, it was like, really loved Rob's input here because it was just the zoom in of your face all blurry.
Yeah,
it was perfect. No, it was awesome. I'm excited to get this thing rolling, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's truly a dream of mine to contribute to the pirate ship, and with you three individuals, I think that we've got a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, awesome. No, and Ryan, thank you for keeping me honest there. I'm excited to have Sans and to bring that enlisted perspective, and also he's Navy, so it's pretty balanced here.
We got a healthy mix.
Yeah. So, don't say that we're not fair, if anything. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next week.